teach you about double tonguing, what double tonguing is, how to double tongue on bassoon, and how to get better at it so that it becomes just as easy as your single tongue. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Natalie Law, and I'm a professional bassoonist and teacher, and I love to help people just like you learn how to play the bassoon and improve your skills so that you can play whatever you want on the bassoon. So if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and check out some of my other videos. They might help you out in your bassoon journey. Double tonguing is a technique that we can use as wind players. Most wind players use double tonguing to increase our tonguing speed. So if you think about it, when you're single tonguing, which is just regular tonguing, when you're single tonguing, you can only tongue so fast at a time before it starts sounding like. You can only tongue so fast until your tongue tires out and you can't play for very long, and your tongue kind of caps out at a certain time. And you have to remember your tongue is a muscle in your mouth and it tires out and it has its limits. But there is some music that does require us to double tongue because the tempo is so fast, or there's so many repeated notes in a row that we can't possibly single tongue all of that all back to back. So double tonguing allows us to tongue faster. In order to learn double tongue, your single tongue has to be solid, and it has to be pretty fast too. So if you want to learn double tonguing as a way to tongue faster because you can't single tongue very fast, I wouldn't recommend that, because you need a solid single tonguing foundation in order to be able to double tongue. So I recommend, if you haven't already, check out my articulation video, and I teach you my approach to tonguing and where on the tongue should hit, where on the reed, and some strategies for tonguing faster and tonguing cleaner so that you can single tongue really well. And once you can single tongue really well and you have that solid foundation, then you can think about double tonguing so that you can use it in certain situations. When you think about single tonguing, you can think that the tongue is just hitting the reed in the same spot back and forth the whole time. It's just moving like this. And the tongue, it has to go to the reed and then come away, even if it's just a very small amount. Tongue like this. Double tonguing makes it so that your tongue doesn't always have to hit the reed in order for the sound to be articulated. So in double tonguing, the motion of the tongue is, the initial tongue is normal. In the second tongue motion that follows after the initial tongue of a double tongue, there's like a short, aggressive burst of air that goes through the reed, and that makes it sound like you're tonguing. So it's like tongue, air, tongue, air, tongue, air, but that happens really fast. Tongue, air, tongue, air, tongue, air, tongue, air, to be able to allow that. And that allows a second motion in the mouth, hence the double tongue. It allows that second motion to make that second tonguing sound. When you're first learning double tongue, if you've never learned it before, one way to think about it is if you say the word ticket, but you emphasize the second syllable of that word. So ticket, that k sound is that second tongue motion I was just talking about. Ticket. You want that t and the k sound to match exactly, so you, like, the listener wouldn't be able to tell whether you're single tonguing or double tonguing. And that's the hard part about double tonguing. It's relatively simple to learn how to do it, like the actual tongue motion, but you think just the t, k. But getting it to sound really smooth and even takes a lot of practice. So just a general thing to think about when it comes to double tonguing is that if you asked a series of professional bassoonists what their approach to double tonguing and single tonguing was, when they used double tonguing and how they learned it and their approach to it, you would get many different responses. And that's because everybody is different. Everybody is built differently and learns differently and has different approaches. For example, some people use double tonguing just as much as they use single tonguing. Half the time they're single tonguing, half the time they're double tonguing, and they double tongue basically anytime there's a moderately fast tempo. There are some people who hardly double tongue at all and only double tongue in certain situations. I am one of those people where I don't tend to double tongue unless I really need to. There's not a whole lot of music out there that I can't single tongue, but that's because my single tongue is pretty fast. And I've done a lot of work to make my single tongue really fast. And I think that there's also a lot to do with how we're naturally built as well. I think some people, it's just a little bit easier to single tongue really fast, and other people, they can't single tongue very fast at all. And so you have to rely on double tonguing. And so you'll find different perspectives on this. But in general, you have to have a good single tongue before you can move to double tonguing. So just so you know, some people use double tonguing a lot. Some people are like me and don't use it all that often, except in situations that you really need to. As you're learning double tonguing, don't give up on your single tonguing. It's really common that as you're trying to build this new double tonguing technique, that your single tonguing suffers. So it's really important that you are constantly working on both, especially if you're just learning double tonguing. There has to be a crossover period, no matter who you are, how often you use double tonguing. There has to be a range of tempos where you're crossing over where you could single tongue it or you could double tongue it. You can't have up to 132 beats per minute at 16th notes. You can single tongue, and then everything that's faster than that is double tongue. You have to have maybe 16th notes at quarter note equals 144 can be single tongued, and then your double tongue might start at 132 or 126 or something, so that there's a range where you could do either single or double tongue. It's important to be able to do both very well. How to double tongue. So back to that ticket idea, ticket, or thinking tucka. You can also think dugga. It doesn't have to be tucka TK. It can be DG tucka dugga. Some people find one or the other more helpful. But when you're just starting out, try just say. You have to be able to speak the double tongue syllables. If you can't speak it, then you can't play it. So try just saying ticket, and that k sound should be really prominent. Ticket. And when you feel like you're pretty comfortable saying ticket, try that with a note on the bassoon. And when you're starting to double tongue, you want your note on the bassoon to be relatively free responding and easy to play. So I usually pick a note like in the staff or just above the staff. Usually those notes tend to be a little bit easier. Whereas when you get lower in the bassoon and there's more resistance, it's more difficult to double tongue. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So, and then now I'm going to go ticket. So your double tongue, when you very first start this, it might be you may not be able to get a very clean k sound at the beginning, and that's perfectly normal. So just keep going, speaking and then saying ticket, and try to get even syllables across. So the key is getting the k to sound like the t, so that we don't know that your tongue isn't touching the reed for the double tonguing. Do that simply at first. Try it on a couple easy notes. And then when you feel like you've got that word down, ticket, and you can get pretty even notes on one single note, then try this in a scale. If I'm going to do C major, I'm going to do ticket, just like that. And it's okay to start if it's kind of lopsided, like ticket. It's better at first to try and emphasize the K just so that you really get comfortable with that. And then eventually we try to smooth it out so that we can't really tell. The first time I was single tonguing, the second time I was double tonguing. In addition to the ticket or taka or da-ga on a scale up and down, doing different notes, try just doing the ka sound on the scale. So just go ka, 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 ka. So that I was just going ka, 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 and my tongue wasn't touching the reed, but if I'm doing it well, you shouldn't be able to tell. So again, start with just ticket. Try to go from speaking to playing that on a single note on the bassoon. When that gets comfortable, try doing that ticket in a scale, and then just try doing ka in a scale, because eventually we want the ka to be just as comfortable and sound just as good as the ta. Now, so that is kind of how to double tongue, but obviously once you start that, you're not going to be able to just all of a sudden incorporate it into your playing. It's going to take a lot of practice. For me, it took years. It took years for me to get comfortable enough with double tongue where I can just use it when I need it. And I still practice it in my warm-up exercise when I'm doing my full warm-up. So I recommend that you incorporate double tonguing exercises like the scale exercises I just showed you into your everyday warm-up routine. And if you don't have a warm-up routine or not a very good one, check out my video on warm-up routines, and I talk about my single and double tonguing exercises, and that's where I put them in so that you're practicing it every day. If you don't practice it every day, it's not going to come. So it has to be consistent, thoughtful practice, and maybe spend 10-15 minutes on double tonguing a day if you're just starting out, and then eventually it'll get easy. It might take a couple weeks for it to become even remotely easy for you. And then a couple other tips are, if you just feel like you're like like you have no control, you can't go very fast with your double tongue. First of all, not feeling like you can go very fast with your double tongue at first is normal. It's normal to feel really thuddy and uncontrolled, but try minimizing your tongue movements. How small of a tongue motion can you have for the ta and the ka? The smaller the tongue motion, the more efficient you're going to be and the faster you're going to be able to go. So think about that. If you're still feeling like it's not very efficient, it doesn't sound very good, minimize the motion. You also, when you're just in your everyday life walking around, it's helpful for you to go taka 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 taka. Sometimes I'll just do that subconsciously and it annoys the people around me. But just doing it outside of bassoon, that tongue motion, taka 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 taka, outside of bassoon in your everyday life, that's going to help it be easier when you come back to the bassoon. So just kind of live and breathe double tonguing when you're first starting out, to get that motion. So when you're trying to incorporate double tonguing into your playing, usually you will use double tonguing on a passage that you can't quite single tongue, or you're at the very top of your ability in single tongue, and it would just be better to transition over to double tongue. Anytime you're trying to incorporate it into a piece of music, practice it really slowly first and get it super duper clean. Record yourself to make sure that the ka is just as clean as the ta. There will be times where in a certain passage you might want to alternate between single tonguing and double tonguing. That will take practice to go from single to double tonguing. You might even want to mark in your music DT for double tongue so that you know that when you get to that note, you're going to transition into double tonguing. And just like in that William Tell melody I played, I went ta-ga-ta, 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 ta-ta, ta-ga-ta, 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 ta-ta, ta-ga-ta, 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 ta-ta, ta-ga-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. So I was going back and forth between single and double tonguing based on the music. I could have double tongued that whole thing. Ta-ga-ta, ta-ga-ta, ta-ta, ta-ga-ta, 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 wait, ta-ga-ta, 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 ka-ta, ta-ga-ta, 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 ka-ta, ta-ga-ta, 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 ka-ta, ka-ta-ka-ta, ka-ta-ka-ta, ka-ta. Here we go. You can tell that I am not comfortable double tonguing the whole thing. Some people would just double tongue that entire thing, but I was going back and forth and I was only double tonguing the part. So again, different approaches to double tonguing. There is also a thing called triple tonguing, which I won't go into because this is really just about getting you into this idea of double tonguing. But triple tonguing is when there's a triple rhythm or triple meter. There's a couple of different ways of doing it. You could go tucka-ta, 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 tucka-ta-ta. If you just kept that double tongue, it would be like tucka-ta, ka-ta-ka, tucka-ta, ka-ta-ka, tucka-ta, ka-ta-ka, tucka-ta-ka. But it's hard because the ka happens on a downbeat, and that's hard to do. Tucka-ta, ka-ta-ka. In triple meters or triple rhythms, you might opt for ta-ta-ka, 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 or you might opt for tucka-ta, 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 tucka-ta. So there would be two T's next to each other, and then the K would happen every two T's. And that might be easier in a triplet rhythm. So there's different approaches to the triplet rhythms. But again, I'm not going to go super far into that because that's another set of exercises and things. But that's kind of how you might think about triple rhythms. If this video was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and let me know down in the comments. Are you able to double tongue? And if so, what sorts of exercises and things did you do to get better at it? And we can help each other out. Certainly the things that I said in this video are a start, but there are certainly other resources, exercises, approaches, ideas to double tonguing out there. And I'd love to hear your approach to double tonguing down below.